The Great War of 1914–1918 was not a single, continuous battle but a sprawling, ever-evolving catastrophe that sprawled across continents and churned through 4 long years. The strategies that generals had studied in military academies, the grand, sweeping maneuvers of Napoleon, shattered against the realities of machine guns, barbed wire, and industrial-scale artillery. As we trace the arc of the conflict, we will see how the initial war of movement ground to a horrifying halt in the trenches, how new technologies like poison gas and the tank were born from desperation, and how a final, all-or-nothing gamble by Germany ultimately led to its stunning and sudden collapse. If you're enjoying this journey through history, please give the video a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more stories to life. Crossed Swords: The Opening Gambit, 1914. The plan that failed the war began with a desperate sprint. Germany, trapped between a hostile France and a massive Russia, activated the Schlieffen plan to avoid a drawn-out two-front war. The audacious plan called for a massive right hook through neutral Belgium to sweep down and encircle Paris, knocking France out of the war in just 6 weeks. After this, the entire German army could be shifted east by rail to deal with the slowly mobilizing Russian steamroller. For a few weeks, the plan seemed to be working. The German First Army, commanded by the aggressive General Alexander von Kluck, marched relentlessly through Belgium and northern France. Panic gripped Paris. The French government fled to Bordeaux, and the military governor requisitioned a fleet of 600 Parisian taxis to rush 6,000 reserve soldiers to the front lines. Then, in early September, von Kluck made a fatal error. In pursuit of the retreating French Fifth Army, he turned his forces southeast, exposing his right flank to the French capital. French Commander-in-Chief Joseph Joffre seized the opportunity, launching a massive counterattack along the Marne River. In the First Battle of the Marne, September 5–12, the Allies poured into a 30-mile gap between the German First and Second Armies, halting the German advance and saving Paris. The Schlieffen plan had been torn to tatters. The German army, exhausted and out of supply, was forced to retreat and dig in. The race to the sea followed, as both sides desperately tried to outflank each other, a frantic competition that finally ended on the Belgian coast. The war of movement was over. On the Eastern Front, the war initially followed a very different script. To relieve pressure on their French allies, the Russians invaded East Prussia sooner than the Germans expected. The German High Command, led by the formidable duo of Paul von Hindenburg and his brilliant Chief of Staff, Erich Ludendorff, moved to counter the threat. Intercepting unencrypted Russian radio transmissions revealing poor coordination between their two invading armies, the Germans isolated and annihilated General Alexander Samsonov's Second Army at the Battle of Tannenberg, August 26–30. The Russians suffered a staggering loss of nearly 250,000 men, with Samsonov committing suicide in disgrace. Though Russia was knocked out of East Prussia, its sheer mass continued to bleed the Central Powers. Brick the Long Grind, 1915–1916. The War of Attrition. By 1915, the Western Front had calcified into a 400-mile labyrinth of trenches stretching from the North Sea to Switzerland. All hopes for a decisive breakthrough were crushed by the realities of modern firepower. Machine guns could cut down attacking infantry by the hundreds, and accurate, rapid-firing artillery made no man's land a death sentence. 1915 was a year of failed offensives and new horrors. In April, at the Second Battle of Ypres, the Germans introduced a terrifying new weapon, chlorine gas. The attack on French colonial troops left a 4-mile gap in Allied lines, a gap the Germans were unprepared to exploit. But the gas attack had unleashed a new, more personal and indiscriminate form of industrial warfare. On the other battlefields, the Italian front saw 12 brutal, indecisive battles along the Isonzo River, while the Allies launched a disastrous amphibious campaign against the Ottoman Empire at Gallipoli. The hope was to knock the Ottomans out of the war and open a supply route to Russia, but the campaign was a failure, ending with a costly Allied withdrawal in early 1916. In 1916, the German commander at Verdun, General Erich von Falkenhayn, launched a new strategy of attrition, a strategy of wearing down the enemy through continuous losses in men and material. He didn't aim to capture ground, he aimed to capture French soldiers. By attacking the historic fortress of Verdun, a point of immense national pride, he hoped to bleed the French army white. The Battle of Verdun began on February 21, 1916, and lasted 10 months. The fighting was apocalyptic, a mincing machine of German artillery designed to suck in and destroy French divisions. French General Philippe Pétain famously ordered his troops, "Ils ne passeront pas," they shall not pass. They held, but at a horrific cost. An estimated 400,000 French casualties and 350,000 German casualties. To relieve the pressure on Verdun, the Allies launched their own massive offensive on the Somme River on July 1, 1916. The Battle of the Somme was intended to be a decisive breakthrough, but it became a byword for industrial-scale slaughter. After a week-long preliminary bombardment that failed to cut German barbed wire or destroy deep dugouts, British infantry went over the top, in broad daylight, walking in neat lines across no man's land. The German defenders emerged from their shelters and raked the advancing lines with machine gun fire. The first day of the Somme remains the bloodiest day in British military history, nearly 20,000 British soldiers killed and another 40,000 wounded for minimal gains. The battle dragged on for 4.5 months, a grim slog through mud and blood that ultimately gained the Allies only a few miles of devastated ground at a cost of over 1 million casualties on both sides. At sea, the only major clash between the British and German dreadnought fleets occurred at the Battle of Jutland, May 31 to June 1, 1916. The battle was a tactical and strategic mess. The Germans sank more ships and inflicted heavier casualties, but the British Grand Fleet remained in control of the North Sea, and the German High Seas Fleet retreated to port, never again to challenge Allied supremacy in a surface engagement. Gear breaking the deadlock, 1917 revolution, mismanagement, and new warfare. By 1917, the war was bleeding every nation dry. Russia, staggering under staggering losses and domestic turmoil, was on the brink of collapse. The French army, having endured the horror of the Naval offensive, was shattered by widespread mutinies. To support their exhausted allies, the British and Empire forces continued the pressure. In April 1917, the Canadian Corps was given a daunting task: capture Vimy Ridge, a heavily fortified escarpment that had defied French attacks for 2 years. The Canadians, under General Julien Byng, innovated. They built full-scale models of the battlefield for practice, used flash spotting to locate German artillery, and placed over 1,000 guns to lay down a devastating creeping barrage, a moving wall of shellfire that forced German defenders to stay in their dugouts. On April 9, Easter Monday, all 4 Canadian divisions attacked together for the first time. In a matter of days, they had seized the ridge, a stunning success that became a powerful symbol of Canadian nationhood, but it came at the cost of over 10,000 Canadian killed and wounded. That summer, the British launched another massive offensive in Flanders, the Third Battle of Ypres, better known as Passchendaele. It was a symbol of the war's mud, madness, and senseless slaughter. After a prolonged artillery barrage, unusually heavy rains turned the battlefield into a quagmire of liquid mud that swallowed men, horses, and tanks. Soldiers drowned in shell holes. The offensive dragged on from July to November, with the Allies finally capturing the ruined village of Passchendaele at a cost of nearly 500,000 casualties, only to lose it again the following spring. Far from the mud, the war in the air evolved from fragile reconnaissance planes into deadly dogfights between aces in Fokkers and Sopwith camels. In November, at the Battle of Cambrai, the British unveiled a new combined arms tactic, deploying 476 tanks en masse for the first time. In a surprise attack, the tanks, supported by aircraft and artillery, smashed through the formidable Hindenburg Line. The British made spectacular gains in a single day, finally proving that the trench deadlock could be broken. However, a devastating German counterattack with their own new infantry tactics recaptured most of the lost ground, but Cambrai had signaled the future of warfare. 1917 also saw the war go truly global. In the Middle East, British forces under General Edmund Allenby achieved a decisive victory at the Battle of Megiddo in September 1918, a precursor to the armored warfare of World War II. On the Eastern Front, the Russian war effort finally collapsed. The Brusilov offensive of 1916 had been a stunning Russian success that crippled the Austro-Hungarian army. But the huge losses of the war had brought Russia to its knees. The Tsar was overthrown, and the new Bolshevik government, led by Vladimir Lenin, signed the humiliating Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Germany in March 1918, taking Russia out of the war for good. This victory gave Germany a final, fleeting chance to win the war. High voltage: the final gambles. 1918 The Kaiser's battle and the 100 days with Russia defeated, Germany transferred nearly 50 divisions to the Western Front. They now had a temporary numerical advantage before millions of American troops could arrive. General Ludendorff, the de facto German military dictator, planned a final, all-or-nothing offensive, the Kaiserschlacht, Kaiser's battle. He abandoned the old strategy of trying to capture a specific point. Instead, he would use new stormtrooper tactics, elite infantry units infiltrating weak points in Allied lines, bypassing strongpoints, and spreading chaos behind the front. On March 21, 1918, Operation Michael, the first of several German spring offensives, was launched. A short, hurricane bombardment of 6,473 guns and 3,532 mortars preceded the stormtroopers. The attack was devastatingly successful. The Germans advanced further in a few weeks than the Allies had in 4 years of trench warfare, smashing through the British Fifth Army and threatening the vital rail hub of Amiens. The Allies were in crisis. They finally agreed to unify their command under a single commander, French General Ferdinand Foch. The Germans, however, had outrun their supplies and their artillery. Their gains were tactically impressive but strategically meaningless. After a final, failed push in July, the German offensive had exhausted itself. The Allies, now bolstered by hundreds of thousands of fresh American troops, launched their own counter-offensive. On August 8, 1918, at the Battle of Amiens, the Allies unleashed a massive surprise attack with 600 tanks, infantry, aircraft, and artillery. The German lines collapsed. Ludendorff called it the Black Day of the German Army. This was the beginning of the 100 Days Offensive, a series of unrelenting Allied attacks that pushed the German army back along the entire front. The Allies had finally perfected the tactics of combined arms warfare: infantry, tanks, aircraft, and artillery working in close coordination. Skull and crossbones: the Armistice. By November, the German army was in full retreat, its allies, Bulgaria, the Ottoman Empire, and Austria-Hungary, had surrendered, and revolution was breaking out at home. The German High Command, facing inevitable defeat, finally sued for peace. At 5 a.m. on November 11, 1918, in a railway carriage in the Campagne forest, the Allies and Germany signed an armistice that would take effect 6 hours later, at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The guns fell silent. The war that had been promised would be over by Christmas 1914 had dragged on for 4 years, leaving behind a world utterly transformed and scarred beyond recognition. Thank you for watching. If you found this history valuable, please like and subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective and keep the conversation going.